me what was a strategy you used? Skip counting. We used a lot of skip counting. Who used skip counting last week? Did you skip count by 2s, maybe 5s, maybe 10s? Skip counting is a great strategy. Any other strategies you might have used last week? We were counting those school supplies. Ava?
Counting in piles.
Counting in piles or in groups. Love that. Great strategies. We might have had a certain number of piles we had to count. Definitely. Some of you might know this already. Go ahead and turn to the next link page. But on Friday, you were multiplying. What? You were doing multiplication on Friday. Some of you may or may not have, Connor, please stop making that noise. May or may not have known that, but you were multiplying. Multiplication is a shortcut for skip counting or for repeated addition. Your next title on the next blank page is right here. It's this sentence right here. Multiplication is a shortcut for skip counting / repeated addition. You're writing that down as the next blank page title. So if we remember when we were doing our repeated addition equations, they got to be really, really long, especially when you had to add 6 things, right? Those last columns said 6 groups of something. That was a lot of writing. Those equations got really, really big. Instead of writing all those pluses over and over and over again, we're going to be using the tool of multiplication to make the equation shorter. That's why I say it's a shortcut. It's still skip counting. It's still repeated addition. It's just a shorter way of writing it. All I'm asking is for you to write the word array. You're writing it underneath what you just wrote. I know you looked at almost this exact same slide because I need it. So I know what you saw. Remember, our arrays are our groups and our columns, or our rows and our columns. I want you to do a quick sketch of this array. Doesn't have to be exact. Go ahead and do a quick sketch of that array. We talked about there's a couple of different ways to read that, right? We could see 3 groups of 2. We might see it like this. Here's a group of 2, here's a group of 2, here's a group of 2. That would be 3 groups of 2. Or maybe we see it as 2 groups of 3. Does anyone see that? I tend to see this array as 3 groups of 2. Give me a Me Too signal if you see 3 groups of 2. So we're going to write the repeated addition that goes with that. If I see 3 groups of 2, that means my repeated addition equation, which I'm writing, that means you are writing, is going to be 2 plus 2. So don't write a 2. 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals 2, 4, 6. There's my repeated addition. Remember, I've written my groups over and over. We did that last week with our school supplies. You might have said 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5, and we were counting those. I don't remember what they were. Something. So now let's look at our multiplication equation. We have a new symbol. We've seen this symbol. It's just an X is what it looks like. That's the multiplication symbol. The way I'm going to write this is 2x. Oh, no, not 2, sorry.
That's times.
3x 2 equals 6. So I might read it as 3 times 2 equals 6. What do you think that means? Why do you think I wrote it like that? 3 times 2 equals 6. What do you think those 3's and those 2's might mean? Connor, what do you think?
3 is in the 2, so one thing I know about multiplication,
Uh-huh.
if you're doing 3 times 2,
Yep.
so you're doing 2 3's.
I'm not doing 2 3's. Because look at my repeated addition equation.
Either you can do 2 3's or 3 2's.
That's a really good thought. Now, there's a reason I wrote it in this order.
Oh.
So do you think it's going to be 2 3's or 3 2's? Look at how I wrote it. It is going to be 3 2's. Mason, you got some thoughts?
Just 3 groups of 2.
Yes! And that brings us to our next, go ahead quickly, Brogan. Our next thought, that multiplication symbol that we see as an X, when I translate that to English, I do not want you using the word times. Yes, you can, it's not wrong, but it doesn't give me a good idea of what I'm talking about. So underneath, you should have written 3 times 2 equals 6. Underneath that equation that you wrote, we're going to write that sentence in English. What we really meant was 3 groups of 2 is equal to 6. So we have our English sentence and our math equation. They mean the same thing. So when you see 3 times 2, I don't want you to think 3 times 2. I want you to think 3 groups of 2. You should be writing that sentence down. Some of you aren't writing. Julian, you with us? You're writing that English sentence down underneath our equation. So let's practice. I'm going to give you some random multiplication equations. I do not want the answer. I want you to read it to me in English. You ready? Who thinks they can read that equation in English? Lydia? 7 groups of 6. Can you picture what 7 groups of 6 might look like? 7 tiles with 6 in each one. Or maybe we talked about a half dozen of something. There's always 6. So we have 7 half cartons of eggs. What about this one? Raise your hand if you can translate that into English. Samaya? 4 groups of 12. And I know donuts, you don't have to write it. I know donuts come in groups of 12, so I'm picturing 4 groups or boxes of a dozen donuts. What about... who can do that one into English? Make sense? 100. I might be thinking, what's something that comes in packs of 100? Do you think anything that comes in packs
Little
of 100?
erasers.
Oh yeah, like the little pencil cap erasers. Maybe I have 2 packs with 100 in each. Do you think you might know the answer to 2 groups of 100? Maybe 200. Look at you guys already doing that huge multiplication. What about what about that one? You can translate that into English. Paxton, give it a go. Or 8 groups of 3. Maybe I'm counting tricycles. You know what a tricycle is? They've got 3 wheels.
Yeah.
Maybe I have 8 tricycles. And I want to count all those wheels. 8 groups of 3.
Okay, 8.
What about? What about that one? All right, you want to try that one?
5 times 8.
Try that number again.
10 times 8.
How do I read this symbol? Because remember I told you I don't want to use times. I want to use something that I can actually think about. Nope, not multiplication. How did we translate this one into English? What words did we use? Because I didn't say 3 times 2. What did you write down? So instead of saying 3 times 2, I said 3 groups of 2. How would I read that down here then? 10 groups of 8. You know when you get those little fun size Skittles or M&Ms?
Right there.
There's usually about 8 pieces in there. So maybe I went trick-or-treating on Halloween and I got 10 little fun size Skittles. And I want to know how many actual Skittles. I might say 10 groups of 8. What about this one? Ooh, Archer, how do I read that? 20 groups of 4. I got 4 quarters. That's going to be worth $1, right? But now I have 20 groups of those 4.
Oh, that's $20.
I would have $20. I have a lot more quarters though, right?
Yeah.
What if I had this one? This one's kind of weird to think about.
Oh.
How would I read that? How would I read that? One group of 6. If I have one group of 6, how many do I have, Jordan? I just have 6. I have one group of 6. What about this one?
Oh my God.
Callie, you think you can read that one? It's a big one.
Oh my God.
You can. No, I don't think that one. 1,000 groups of 1,000. So imagine maybe a stack of 1,000. And then I have 1,000 of those stacks. That would be so many. What about what is that one? How do I read that? Go for it, Julian.
1 million groups of 4.
1 million groups of 4.
I don't know that one.
1 million groups of 4. All right. Which is that going to be a large number or a small number? 1 million groups of 4. Raise your hand and tell me. Do you think that's going to be a lot of things or a little bit of things? Julian, what do you think?
A lot of things.
Yeah, but are my groups very big? No, my groups only have 4 things in them.
So that's
I just have 1 million of those groups. Bowen, do you have a question or you want me to give you one?
No.
Okay. So when you see, hold it around. When you see that multiplication symbol, what are the 2 words that you should think of? Because it's not multiplication and it's not times. Samaya? Groups of. Get that picture happening in your head. As soon as you see that multiplication symbol, we need to be thinking, okay, we're counting groups. We need to figure out how many groups we have and how much are in those groups so we can figure out our total.